I don't have anything clever to say for the intro. I just broke my brain trying to figure out how we're going to get Phage the Untouchable into play. So just roll the music. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. And Andre, all the way from Germany, has sent us a pretty big brew challenge. We are trying to fix their Volrath Shapeshifter deck. So, unless you've been playing for a long time, you probably don't know this one. So, as long as the top card of your graveyard is a creature card, Volrath's Shapeshifter has the full text of that card and has the text 2 mana, discard a card. So, in theory, what you would like to do is have the top card of your library be Phage the Untouchable, which normally, if you don't cast it, you just lose the game when it enters. When Phage deals combat damage to a creature, you destroy that creature, and when it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. So, your ideal world is accelerate this out, make it into a creature, and kill your opponent. And this could, in theory, happen on, like, turn 3 if you accelerate it out via a Birds of Paradise. Now, this deck used to exist in a world where survival of the fittest was legal, which lets you turn any creature in your deck into Phage the Untouchable. So you turn a creature into Phage, you throw Phage into your graveyard, and you execute your combo. Cool. Well, they banned this card in Legacy. Turns out there's more broken things that you could do than just this within the context of the Legacy card pool. It'd probably be even scarier now, given all the crazy graveyard-oriented stuff they've printed in the last 5 or so years. Now, Andre put some pretty heavy restrictions on me. I was told that we aren't supposed to just turn this into a Reanimator deck, and that we aren't just supposed to turn this into something like a Phyrexian Devourer Tri-Skeleton deck. And I'm going to be honest with you, Entomb is like the best possible fucking card in this deck. Entomb is your survival of the fittest. Entomb is what lets you put exactly the card that you want on top of your graveyard at instant speed to make it so that you win combat or otherwise devastate your opponent. And if you do not have the ability to tutor for exactly the card you want at a mana efficient rate, and preferably at instant speed, you're, I think, really handicapping yourself. And what is the best thing to do with creatures once they are in your graveyard? Reanimate them, bring them back. Instead of paying 6 or 7 mana for a card, you pay 1 mana and maybe some life for that card. And I think by putting a no reanimation stipulation, although for some reason Unearth was fine because that can't reanimate the big things, by putting a no reanimation stipulation onto the deck list, I am being severely like handicapped here. Like this is a very, very rough deck building restriction, but we're going to try to make it work anyway. So this is one of those times where I basically needed to scrap most of what's here and start over fresh, because there's just not enough in this deck as is, I think, that is supporting like this whole Volrath's Shapeshifter plan. One of the biggest problems here is that there is not a way to get creatures out of the way. So there's no removal spell here, right? So as soon as your opponent has a decent sized creature, like, I don't know, a Psychic Rogue, an Atraxa, the plan of having this get through and connect for a combat damage win is no longer happening. I also don't think it makes sense to try to play Living Wish and eat up your entire sideboard with these large creatures if you're only going to play 2 Living Wishes. So, I'm not going to lie to you, I had trouble trying to make this work, and here's what I came up with. So, I needed something to make this work. And the card that I came up was the Animus, or the Animus, depending on what pronunciation you want to use. Beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 target legendary creature from a graveyard with a memory counter on it. Until your next turn, target legendary creature you control becomes a copy of target creature in exile with a memory counter on it. activate only as a sorcery. So, why do I like this? So, this can exile a phage with a memory counter on it. And then the bottom tap ability can be activated multiple times. The card doesn't lose the memory counter or anything like that afterwards. So, if we can get a phage into exile with the Animus, then every legendary creature that we control from there on out can end up becoming phage. So, if we need to force our way through a couple of smaller creatures, we can. And this is something that we could activate multiple turns in a row. So we keep some of the looting idea that was in the original deck list. We add another just mana efficient legendary creature that has some other upside. We get some removal into the deck list so we can actually push our creatures through. And we add Troll of Khazad-dûm to the deck list so that we have another sort of combat trick for Volrath's Shapeshifter. While it would be really cool to just, win the game when we connect with this card, sometimes our opponent is going to block with a valuable creature and being able to just boop, troll, and now we have a relatively hard to defeat in combat sized body. Now, this comes at some deck building costs. I am trying to fit in. I think it has to be 11 cards. I think you do need to max out on copies of Phage if you don't have the ability to just entomb for it. So we are trying to fit in a relatively large combo package into this deck list. And the original deck list didn't even have Ponder. I think we need that to string our deck together. So I think this is about what I have to end up with for a game 1 scenario. And then when we inevitably run into very unfair combo decks that are just faster than what we are doing, you have a decent amount of things that you can do to shift that game plan. I'm going to keep a couple of just fair things in the sideboard because we might be trying to board in 10 or 11 cards in some matchups, and that might just completely devastate the combo package that is in this deck to the point that it's borderline unplayable. And when that happens, I might just need a standalone win condition because more or less Psychic Frog is the only standalone win condition in this deck list unless we start getting to 6 or 7 mana, at which point the game has probably gone horribly wrong. So this is definitely one of these against the odds, can we make it work videos. This is my best attempt at trying to Phage the Untouchable people in Legacy without using the graveyard. Note that I think this gets a whole lot easier if you're allowed to abuse the graveyard, because you can become a Reanimator deck with things like Goryo's Vengeance. You can probably build maybe an Esper version of this deck that just tries to bring back Atraxas and Phages at instant speed and plays main deck Doorkeeper Thrall, Tokatli Honor Guard, Torpor Orb, Consign to Memory, Stifle, whatever, to stop the Phage trigger from mattering. I think you can build a very reasonable Phage the Untouchable deck in that capacity. But that's not what we're trying today. So, if you need your copy of Phages to attempt to do the crazy thing that I'm about to attempt, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. Tales of Adventure is an awesome store. You always get free shipping, and promo code ThrabenU will save you a little bit beyond even that. With that being said, let's battle. All right. We begin the game with a perfectly reasonable, fair... Am I supposed to play that land prior to doing that? Bristly Bill. So we are potentially playing against some sort of Gaia's Cradle nonsense deck, or potentially a mid-rangey Nadu deck list. And I'll probably have to decide on turn 1 whether or not I am taking out something like a Dryad Arbor or Delighted Halfling, or whether I'm holding Fatal Push for a better creature. Alright, my opponent has played an Ignoble Hierarch. So, am I getting rid of this? I know that there is a reasonably strong creature coming next turn. I have 4 pieces of removal in my entire deck. My opponent could be playing Gaia's Cradle, in which case leaving this here could lead to a really explosive turn. I think I'm going to try to slow down the game a bit. If I leave this creature and my opponent like Bristly Bills off these 2 mana, then plays a fetch land, they can get a lot of value off of that, which may or may not go on the Bristly Bill directly. And a Cradle turn could be pretty bad for me. Sure. JVP. So what is my plan to win this game? Probably draw more cards. I think the plan is draw more cards. I think I'm going to accomplish that via Psychic Frog. But I think my opponent is just going to eat me alive. Like, I think my opponent mid-range is much harder than I do on average. If they have something like Natural Order as something that their deck is doing, that can happen as soon as this turn. I have Otawara for a little bit later, so that's cool, I guess. I am not the most interested in those cards. The Brainstorm is interesting, but I would just be drawing through 2 JVPs. I think I'm just going to shuffle this. That's not really what I'm looking for. I guess at this point, I'm going to go ahead and just fly on in, draw my extra card, and try to make decisions from there. Like to find something like a Fatal Push. Or am I going to get phased out? I'm going to get phased out. Stupid Madara Uchiha land, too strong. Alright, so I can now ponder and try to find a Fatal Push for one of these 2. Or I can play JVP and try to loot through some of these lands. I think there is some real immediacy on this game. I'm going to try to ponder for Fatal Push. Fail. Shuffle. I can ponder again, trying to find one for my next turn. I have Volrath Shapeshifter, but no big thing to go with it. I think I shuffle these. Alright. That's that. Hopefully I don't effectively die this turn. I have an Otawara that I could dump all of my mana into. It just wouldn't feel good. I think I'm about to eat a Natural Order. Ooh. Alright. Oh, we're just doubling counters. Just 11 damage casually. NBD. I take 8. I want to have Endurance too. Well, let's send in, draw a card, see if I can draw something efficient like Fatal Push. Nope. You can nuke those cards from my graveyard, that's fine. I'm not even really sure that you're supposed to block there. I think you just let me draw 1 card and then have 5 + 3, 8 damage, even if I address Bristly Bill. Let's just always yield to that. I'll shut up if the last card is just like a Fatal Push or whatever. This is 3, 4. So this is 4, 5. So I now win in combat, and I still have a land to take Bristly Bill out of play. I'm just going to be dead to a land drop anyway, though, unfortunately. So I bounce that out of play since it has more counters on it. I can be attacked for 5, 6. So Bristly Bill plus land kills me. Oh, I mean, that does it too. That is 7. Rough. So I think I just don't have the degree of interaction necessary to beat this deck. I'm kind of light on counterspells. I'm kind of light on removal. My deck is slower than their deck. And they just also have natural interaction like Endurance that can accidentally mess up some of the cool stuff that I want to do that I haven't shown them yet. I can Thoughtseize to speed up my interaction. Phasing is also kind of rough. It's probably correct to like add 4 Thoughtseize, add 2 Goyfs, and remove 6 cards of my combo. But I think I'm going to try to execute the combo. This is, I guess, fine. I think I start on the Surveil land. Do not want that. See what our opponent leads on. I'm probably using my turn 2 to Fatal Push a creature in some capacity, and then do another Surveil land. I guess that changes my evaluation. I will take another Fatal Push here. I only have so many of those, so just finding another is a boon. 2 mana pass, so they could be casting like a Once Upon a Time this turn with their mana. So, now we have our fun little creature. If I can get a creature into graveyard or draw one so that I can discard it, we can execute the game plan. I have Force of Will to back this up. The Force of Will timing is a little weird in that I would like to force something before I put a card into graveyard, because, you know, otherwise the Force of Will is going to go on top of this creature. our combo here is a fragile one. And it could also fall apart to something like a wasteland happening. So there's land drop 3. It is White of the Reliquary. I think I let that resolve and just Fatal Push it. Yeah. So let's start here. I can just hit my opponent for 12 next turn if I play this out. But then I drop Force of Will. Just slightly awkward. I think I'm going to Undercity Sewers. And sometimes I randomly hit like a Psychic Frog or a Phage. And it's pretty cool. So I'll go ahead and send on in. After no blocks, I will Swamp Cycle this. We'll turn this into some temporary damage. We'll grab actual factual swamp here. Now, as soon as I use this Force of Will, I don't have a 6/5 threat anymore. So I need to let my opponent have things that don't really matter so that I can block them. Endurance is also really awkward. I can't really Force of Will to stop that. What just happened? I am going to watch the tape back. This is tapped. What? Okay. This is a bug of some kind. My opponent is effectively at 6 health here. So I think gonna try to play another Volrath Shapeshifter and just finish my opponent off, and I will file for reimbursement. Fuck. Alright, yeah. So I can't Force of Will that effectively. I thought if my opponent had that, it would have been fired off already. So that makes playing this out rather than ThrabenU awkward, but like, my cards are bugged. I probably Force of Will that. And kind of hope for the best from here. I can like cantrip into a Phage and have 2 copies of Phage attacking in. Wait. No. Playing multiple of these could be weird. Well, let's see if my opponent blocks both of these. Wait, hold on. Is there a sorcery speed restriction on this? No. Send them. Yes! Yes! Discard Phage. Keep the unblocked. No! That did not work. That did not work. Alright, that one's on me. I can grab a Surveil Land or a Dryad Arbor here. Yeah, like, thinking about this interaction now, I think 2 or 3 turns ago I should have played the ThrabenU out. Like, Endurance aside. Now we've got a White of the Reliquary and a Hoof. That is a green sun for 7. That's an Atraxa. I think at this point I don't realistically beat that. I'm going to file for comp. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and I personally keep all of my deck lists for every format on this site. I love that I can go and sort them by types and tags if I need to. There's a lot of different viewing options. It can give you some math about your mana symbol, your curve, and you can even playtest and do sample opening hands with it. Check this site out if you haven't before. It's awesome. All right, so the bug is apparently that Volrath's Shapeshifter will only do combat damage the turn that it becomes the creature. So, we've got our work cut out for us, basically. I have a turn 4 kill. Like, once I can attack with this, I Phage. Probably pitch JVP here. I will put Phage furthest down and then not fetch. I'll like throw that over that way. All right. Blooded Strand. Show and tell. All right, I don't love that. So am I better off? Might be better off not forcing that. Yeah. I think my opponent can have that. I'm just not going to draw more counterspells this game. And I think my plan just shifts. I think my plan becomes ignore the combo and dump 6 cards into Psychic Frog next turn. And just try to kill my opponent before they actually execute their own combo. I'm going to confirm that that maths out. Like, is that faster? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Deal 7 this turn. And then 9 next turn. No, that is actually slower than playing this and discarding Phage next turn. So I can discard these 3 cards to Psychic Frog, though. Okay. And I think I don't discard the Phage now. I think I discard that next turn in case something ends up going to my graveyard in some capacity. We'll go 4/5 creature, draw a card, drop this. I have my combo kill on turn 4. And if this is stopped, I kill my opponent in 2 turns. Alright. So if my opponent has a combo, this is it. There is Sneak Attack. There's Lotus Petal to activate. We are hoping for Atraxa. Atraxa is beatable. Emrakul is not. This reduces me down to 0 permanents, leaving my opponent with a Sneak Attack in play. I am fine conceding. We are not faster than our opponent here. So I could consign to memory an Atraxa trigger. I could consign to memory a Vexing Bauble trigger. Those things are fine. I think I want to get rid of Fatal Push and add Thoughtseize. Now, I haven't drawn one of these yet in any of my games. I guess there was only one. It was just long and weird. But this is a way to, like, I can Thoughtseize an opposing creature and then, like, turn my Tamiyo into it. I probably can't snipe an Emrakul with this, though, because, like, there's a sorcery speed restriction on this. Unless we get weird. Yeah, like, Consigns, Null Rods, Goyfs are unexciting things that I could be doing. I think my opponent's deck just ends up being faster than mine, which is probably going to be a trend for today because Legacy is hyper fast right now with combo at, I think it's like 60% of the format or something insane like that. Yeah, 53% of the format as of today, December 1st, according to MTG Top 8. Yeah, this is fine. I think I have to Thoughtseize on one rather than get this going on turn 1, as much as I want to get this going as early as possible. But this is currently my only blue card. So let's see if we can poke a hole in whatever's going on over there. Ooh, okay. So if I take the Archon, the Show and Tells temporarily don't do anything. So I'm going to take Archon this turn. I can take the One Ring next turn while playing Tamiyo and go from there. Tamiyo Brainstorm, also a thing for the future. So Thoughtseize you, take the One Ring, and drop Tamiyo. I am going to grab a basic on the off chance that my opponent has a Blood Moon effect boarded in. I could have hedged against this harder than I did. Oh. Alright. Is it bait? Or did my opponent with no manipulation top deck a broken thing? What did Thundering Falls do? Thundering Falls put Ancient Tomb into graveyard. So the card is random. I think there's a good chance that this is bait. I look like an idiot if I'm wrong, and a genius if I'm correct. I think this is bait. I am wrong. I lose. So punishing. Alright. I will concede. Yeah, I fully thought that was bait to counterspell check so that the real one could resolve later. GG's. Alright, we have a reasonable opening hand that is going to need Brainstorm to sculpt here. This is scary because it represents Vexing Bauble coming in a couple of turns. It's here now. I think we're just letting that resolve and hoping to Brainstorm away the Force of Will. I have exactly 4 counterspells in my deck, so I am not going to be the best at playing future counterspells. Alright, there is a Shapeshifter. I could try to keep this. I would really like a fetch land, though. A Ponder could shuffle. I could Brainstorm into Ponder next turn to shuffle away some of the things like the Force of Will. And that is, I guess, fine. But it's not overly exciting. So I will end up with the ability to play a Shapeshifter on turn 3 and maybe get a kill on turn 4. I'm just worried that my opponent is going to be like a Mystic Forge combo deck that just pops off within the next 2 turns here. Yeah, so we are probably dead. The Vexing Bauble just probably removes all of my agency in this game. And this is the sort of situation that comes up, which is why people have been talking about like this card being bannable within the context of this format, is because it just completely invalidates opposing interaction. Alright, we will put back Force of Will. We will put back a land. We'll do a Ponder with the intention of shuffling, unless I hit exactly Phage, which I did not. And pass. So next turn, I can play Shapeshifter and then have multiple looks at finding Phage. Silent Gravestone. Sure. That is probably fine. I will just lose to this construct token eventually. I don't think I'm going to die from 20 in one hit. I think I am okay to play my Shapeshifter. So then next turn, I have Fatal Push to get this out of the way if it does not attack. And then hopefully I can brainstorm my way to victory beyond that. My opponent is currently tight on mana without any keys. They exiled a key. Alright, whatever, they found another one. Now they can potentially just go wild. There's a new key. My opponent is now no longer bottlenecked on mana, so as long as the top card of their library continues to be something colorless, they are in fine shape. Alright, they lose a land. It doesn't really matter when they have these, though. So now I can't crack back with Phage in this turn cycle. So, let's figure out our life. This doesn't really matter. I'm going to put back land, second Shapeshifter, then I think fetch a Surveil land. I maybe need to Fatal Push with this trigger on the stack in case I want to Brainstorm, actually, right now. Yeah. These are not the things that I am looking for. Let's put back Jace and Force of Will. Junk Force of Will. And pass. Now my opponent has like the One Ring and Mystic Forge. It's very, very unlikely that I can do anything meaningful for the remainder of this game. I can Otawara something out of play. But like that is just so painfully slow. My opponent just has access to all the mana in the world and a ton of card draw. I'm going to give you relevant. Oh, I can probably just concede there. Like, my opponent now has, like, mana untap, followed by One Ring untapped with Glaring Fleshraker. I'm at 9. I'm going to give you relevant updates. That is a Karn. I don't believe it is worth continuing the game anymore. Like, my opponent has 3 different 4-drops in play with multiple engines. Alright, I mean, this is where we are going to sideboard in basically our entire sideboard. Everything that we are doing here is just slower than my opponent's combo by a lot. So this is just going to be a bring in the entire sideboard situation. When do you let me cast things? Do you return it? Yeah, one of you can go. Alright, so we're to board in 12 cards versus this deck, and we're probably still going to feel bad versus it. This is fine. I think I can lead on the swamp. Alright, so there is Vexing Bauble. If I want Force of Will to be a live card, I am priced into taking Vexing Bauble, which I am doing. Opponent will play out one of Voltaic Key or Silent Gravestone this turn. And unfortunately, I might need to Force of Will this Grim Monolith so that my opponent can't get any big mana stuff going. I don't really want to do that. I think it's probably where I'm at. We'll force that. And the Kozilek's Command is worse. My opponent does not currently have the mana for critical 4-drops. I'm going to go ahead and fetch. We'll grab Undercity Sewers. We'd like to find something like a Null Rod or a Consign to Memory before my opponent does something cool. I'll put this directly to hand. Hey, Consign to Memory. That's not a game winner, but that is a reasonable draw. I will Surveil. Yeah. So I'll put that on top, and I may or may not end up keeping it, depending on how the next couple of turns go. Yeah, you get that. That currently doesn't do anything. I think with 2 copies of Consign to Memory, I let that one resolve. And we may be trending towards hardcasting this. I don't really want to. That may be what's happening. My problem here is that I'm not putting any pressure on my opponent, and it's turn 4. So I am in this situation where these start turning into real cards. So I can counter the next 2 things that my opponent plays. All right, so they are going to go for an end of my turn Kozilek's command. I think we're going to do the deck thinning here. It is so marginal in terms of numbers. But if, and I did, but if I hit something like Tamiyo, the ability to crack clues while still doing something else, or play a Psychic Frog while still having mana available, is like absolutely relevant. Alright, so there is the Kozilek's command. I will counter that. Now we have no information about hand. Ooh, opponent is giving up the Vexing Bauble. That shuts off Metalcraft. Yes. Yes, Metalcraft is back. Yep. I might be using Consigned to Memory to stop this from making Construct tokens. Those Construct tokens are fucking massive right now. Alright, cool. So send in with Tamiyo. Cast Ponder. Just more Consigned to Memory. Yep. I think so. Yeah. Don't use that ability. Do I want to crack the clue and turn this into the Planeswalker? I don't think so. I think I will crack it on my opponent's turn. So counter that. Now we don't have to worry about 6/6 or larger construct tokens, and I still have Consigned to Memory for whatever comes next if my opponent has another Haymaker. I do have the ability to make my Tamiyo unblockable 4 times. So let's fetch. Let's crack our clue on this turn. An island. Force of Will is fine when I can actually pay for it. Yeah, so I think I'm just going to get my clue past the turn. The opponent's going to draw a card off the Silent Gravestone here. It's an expensive cycle, but it's fine. A Vexing Bauble could be coming off Urza's Saga. I don't think I care about that. A redraw could be coming off Urza's Saga. I don't think I care about that. I think I don't use Consigned to Memory on this trigger. Yeah, so this is more likely than not to just be a redraw. I'm going to counter that with Force of Will, just paying the 5 mana right now. Yeah, so there's the Vexing Bauble redraw. And we just kind of hope that I can ride Tamiyo to victory here. I will ponder. Yeah. That is just another source of card advantage. I think I am fine with that. So we will go 1, 2, 3. I still have Consigned to Memory available for my opponent's turn, and now I have a 4-turn clock. Yes. Yeah, I don't think mana is the bottleneck. I think the bottleneck is real cards, in air quotes. Can always yield to these keys. I'm not gonna narrate my opponent tapping and untapping this a bunch of times. Opponent now has 14 mana. I counter it. Kozilek's command. I'll counter that and replicate it once. My opponent has 4 mana. They could play another card. Something like the One Ring could, in theory, follow this up. It does not. So I believe I don't want the card that's on top of my deck. So we will go ahead and mill that. This is now a 6-power creature as Kindred. The Eldrazi card went to the graveyard. Fairy is the last card. Sure. So this shrinks this by 2. Which is probably, like, realistically not really going to change the clock all that much. I'm going to transform this turn. Does JVP put it to hand? No. We'll take a new Tamiyo then. So I will crack a clue. I really want to find another piece of interaction for this turn if possible, but it might not be possible. So I can crack a clue and play a new Tamiyo. And this gives me a chance to draw a consign. That's fine. 1 more fetchable land available. Take our look at consign or force. Okay, we hit consign, so I don't play Tamiyo. All right, that's just a land for my opponent. We'll go to punchies. I'll hit my opponent for 6. They go to 10. I mill 6. I get back a Psychic Frog. I minus Tamiyo. I get back another Consigned to Memory. I will fetch out my last remaining land. And then let's just put lethal on board for next turn. And dump our hand of creatures. Yep. So that was more of a game than expected, given how much hate I have for my opponent's deck. So my opponent probably did not change sideboard cards, so they probably still have Fairy Macabre. Like, that was just probably not enough time for them to make adjustments. My hand is mediocre. If I Force of Will pitching Psychic Frog, the rest of the hand doesn't do anything. I think this is actually a mulligan, despite having Force of Will versus a combo deck. Like, I think there are just some better consigned memory hands. I don't think this is good enough versus this deck. This deck is so good. This is awkward. I'm going to assume that this is better than the first hand, though. Like, I just hold up consigned to memory for turn 2. Yes. So, I have to make the decision about whether or not I am going to junk the Urza Saga trigger before I actually see what land my opponent plays. I think I don't consign to memory it. Because I think if I consign to memory it, it's just so easy for me to lose to Grim Monolith bullshit. Like, sometimes this happens and it sucks. But I think I just have to hedge against the other timeline. Yep. Grab Underground Sea here. Fatal Push is not bad. I think I have to take a little damage from the constructs, though. And Thoughtseize here. I just need to sculpt a plan for the game. Yeah, no, that shit's horrifying. I think I take Grim Monolith in this spot because Grim Monolith potentially double key is just too much. And Grim Monolith really helps this other Urza Saga function. Alright. Alright, so my opponent makes a friend. My opponent probably gets Vexing Bauble. Yep. So there's Urza Saga. My opponent loses City. I take 4. I will Fatal Push one of these. Pass turn. I think I have to consign to memory this. Metalcraft is on here. This represents 2 more tokens. I think I just shut that off. I still have to deal with the Glaring Fleshraker that my opponent is going to cast. And I don't have another blue card to Force of Will it. There is also Vexing Bauble as a problem in that regard. And then I hope to spike a land. Not exactly what I wanted. Be a Surveil land. Not exactly sure what I'm looking for. Not that. I don't think Thought Seizing makes sense. I am at 11. Like, my life total is very tight right now. So my opponent floats mana. They're doing this while they still control the extra Urza land. They're doing Silent Gravestone. Grim Monolith. Alright. So mana's not a bottleneck anymore. Mana's really not a bottleneck anymore. Taking 7 this turn. Lethal the following turn. And this probably doesn't save me. Sorry, I'm taking 8 this turn. So that means that any colorless spell kills me. So I do this, and I just pray that my opponent only has lands and has no relevant redraw. Sure. Okay, there is the final spell that kills me. GG's. Okay, opening hand contains no lands, auto mulligan here. I mean, yeah. Yeah. It's like probably correct to throw this away and keep 2 Tamios, but like we're here to ball, right? Opponent has mulligan to 5. If we are playing against an unfair combo deck, I have 0 ability to fight against that, and unfortunately, combo is a massive percentage of the format right now. Arena of Glory probably means Painter. It's not guaranteed or anything, but that's probably what it means. I have some Null Rods in the sideboard that can help with this. I probably won't play something like Fairy. Goblin Welder could get broken as of next turn. I might need to Fatal Push this so that like some of the worst case scenarios don't happen. Oh no, this is at beginning of end step. This is gonna take a little while to get going. Yeah, I think I have to just kill this and do something in a mana inefficient way. And just hope that, like, Psychic Frog and Tameo can carry this game. It's really awkward if my opponent just follows this up by playing a Painter Servant. And I don't have Fatal Push for that, yeah. But the Goblin Welder plus Goblin Engineer nonsense that could happen the following turn is very scary. Force of Will is 1 card too late. They're going to crack a clue here, trying to find a Fatal Push. We did not succeed at doing so. If my opponent doesn't outright kill me in this next turn, I can... they do outright kill me. I can surveil land looking for something else. Alright. Dead on turn 4. Null rods are great. Consigned to memories are great, kind of. Once everything becomes a color, they are significantly less good. Again, it is almost certainly correct to just board in maximum interaction and junk my combo, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to try to keep the combo in. I could junk Force of Will or Consign to Memory and just kind of trim something else around the edges for the null rods. I could actually go deeper on this. This is making Animus really reliant on Tamiyo, though. If I want... Oh, wait. Animus null rod. Okay, never mind. So we just board that out when we are null rodding. This is a really good 5-card hand. I think I'm going to keep this and just, like, believe in Brainstorm as a card. Basic Mountain. Counter spells are off. Very, very big trend in Legacy right now for combo decks to defend themselves via Vexing Bubble so that traditional interaction is not effective. Did you keep a one-lander? Oh, you're a second main phase hipster. There is Goblin Engineer. You've got it. I am probably going to Fatal Push that on my own turn just so I can crack a clue here. Painter to Yard. And on the off chance that my opponent is Blood Mooning, I think I am going to go ahead and grab both basics. I need a way to discard this. Let's set up this turn. I get rid of one of these. I think I'll get rid of the Troll. Oh, fuck. I did not attack for my clue. Objective misplay. So plus that. Fatal Push this. Batch. I will go Underground Sea. Am I fine with 2 of these? Like, Consign's okay, but my opponent's likely to have something relevant in play. I would prefer some sort of Fatal Push. Prefer a Psychic Frog. I would prefer a Null Rod. Let's shuffle. Yours is not the best. Ancient Tomb. Agatha's Soul Cauldron. So now my graveyard stuff is not happening. This is not good. Opponent going with Soul Guide Lantern. Okay. Absolutely do not want that right now. So there is a Painter Servant in graveyard. So we need to minus return Fatal Push. Oh, did not even succeed in tapping Agatha Soul Cauldron. So then at this point, my opponent welds something into Painter, activates Grindstone, and I am dead. I do not have any interaction for that. We are just outsped by my opponent. We're going to eat it to Caracas if my opponent is playing Death and Taxes. I think my hand is perfectly reasonable if my opponent is playing a just blue Yorion pile, and pretty questionable if they are on D&T. Yeah. So we can play the beginning of this game on basics. Okay. I am so fine with it if you swords my Tamiyo. Okay. Sure. I'll get my clue. We are going to ponder. I would like to find a new cantrip. I succeed. Bam. 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 No shuffle. Fetch a new island. This is card draw number 3 of the turn. Psychic Frog, fine. Psychic Frog is not legendary. Fuck, I should have done that in the other order so I can shuffle. It's fine though. So now Mom can't attack for Jete counters immediately. But like, Caracas is pretty devastating versus my entire deck. So opponent presumably has some sort of flash creature that they're going to play, such as Orcish Bowmasters. So we will just keep plussing this. I will drop a Psychic Frog into play. I will drop a Tamiyo into play that probably accomplishes nothing other than making my opponent tap Caracas. So this is presumably black mana for Bowmasters. It is red mana instead. It is Samwise. That does have points of power and toughness through a Tamiyo plus. Opponent bounces my other Tamiyo. There's that fetch land again. And if my opponent is playing Samwise, this is a 4x Caracas deck. We are not going to be great here. So this is just attacking as a 1/1. I am totally fine blocking with Psychic Frog. So this keeps Tamiyo from losing loyalty, which is, I think, what matters here. I have 1 damage marked on Psychic Frog. Opponent can try to go after the Psychic Frog, but I don't know that it makes a lot of sense to. I think I'm going to continue to plus. I think I am going to... Maybe I should be cracking this clue. I don't think I should have played this yet. Let's draw my Psychic Frog card and see what we get. Land. I should not have played this. I can't easily crack this clue. Or a look at Fatal Push. I'll pass the turn here. My opponent will have a Surveil land going. My opponent can bounce both of these creatures out of the way and have a clear shot at Tamiyo. Yeah, my deck is horrible versus Karakas because it hits Jace, Phage, Tamiyo, like basically everything other than Psychic Frog. How hard my opponent is going to go in on hitting Tamiyo here. Relatively hard. Tamiyo goes down to 3. That's real bad. Getting a Skyclave. I think if my next turn cycle isn't good, I'm more or less at the point where I'm ready to concede. I think I have to say no to that and just find something more interesting. Let's go ahead and fly on in, try to get an extra card here. I can't go in on Psychic Frog with all of my cards, given that my opponent has Skyclave coming, and this is also just a... Oh god, is it Swords beyond that? Is... Draw a card... Half a plan... Okay. Like, how am I fucking realistically beating this deck? Like, 12 of my win conditions don't work. Well, really 16 of the cards in my deck are just dead versus Karakas. Don't have enough removal to keep up with the creatures. And like, my shapeshifters are bugged and my opponent has a pile of removal. Yeah, I can't realistically formulate a plan where we ever win at least this game. Like, I can take one thing off of the board pretty easily, but I'm just going to get buried by Yorion. Like, I can Fatal Push, Tamiyo minus, Fatal Push one thing off the board, but, like, the entire rest of my hand is dead. So, I think I need these 6 cards. Volrath Shapeshifter being bugged so that I can't actually swing for 6 multiple turns in a row sucks. Alright, so the Animus is a hard out. What else is going? It is so hard for me to connect with this. Like, I can board out 8 and do, like, 6 plus 2. Oh, geez. Like, that. More than that, right? So it's 6 plus 4. Yikes. Okay. Cool. Like, I can be playing a bad blue-black deck. I think I just start falling behind if I do this. Let's try to keep an oops, I win button. Is Thoughtseize better than Force of Will? Maybe. I could do something like this and randomly hose Aether Vial. My spirit is broken here. We are already doing something janky, and then our deck was bugged. And with the exception of this round, I think we have been outsped at every turn. This is a very dangerous hand. Like, sometimes I keep this, I get wastelanded and die, or Karakas happens, and I just have nothing going. I think I'm going to try to keep a 2-lander. This is much better. It is 100% not correct to keep these for the content. I'm going to ponder on turn 2, I think. I don't know exactly what I want. So, like, now I know that I would like to find Fatal Push, for example. I think I'll Surveil land, even. Trying to find it. 3rd land drop is something that I need. But, like, as soon as my opponent has Mom, this never connects. So I think I need to dig for Fatal Push specifically, otherwise this is not real. None of those are Fatal Push. Let's try to randomly spike it. Fail. Okay, so now my entire hand has been invalidated by a 1-drop creature. Cool. Marsh Flats. There's the red. Sure. Fetch. Surveil land again. If nothing else, card types into graveyard for this matters. So despite the fact that that's a sideboard card, it maybe has better uses elsewhere. All right. Which one am I playing first? I don't know. I think this is the bait. And I just kind of hope to get lucky and connect with this and just oops accidentally a game. But just given how legendary creature centric my deck is, like Caracas at any point in this game just threatens to completely shut down my entire deck. My opponent has enough removal that it's not likely for me to be able to do enough with like a Psychic Rug or a Goyf to just completely take over the game. And if that Caldra hits play, I have one out to it. And it is Caldra. Yep. So, I'm gonna play this. Maybe my opponent makes a aggressive attack next turn. And like they block the Goyf, and I get through with Phage. I don't think it's a very realistic timeline, but I think that's what I have to play towards. Not that it's happening with this exact timing, but we have gotten a decent amount of ancillary hate in terms of graveyard interaction given the current metagame. An opponent is not attacking with both like we would want them to. I mean, let's hope for the best here. Priority passes here might get interesting. I think I'm going to pass priority to my opponent because this currently trades Mother of Runes for this Shapeshifter. The mom is protecting herself here. That's going to occur. I'm going to fetch, then discard Phage to kill this creature in combat. All right, I'm out. This has ceased being fun. Okay, so obviously we got bodied today. So I want to loop back to something from the beginning of the video. You can't try to do something cute while saying, I am not going to play the best cards in the format to support that. By trying to like avoid Reanimate and Entomb, which are just some of the best things to be doing in Legacy. Like, people are bringing them up in ban discussions right now. Like, to avoid playing those cards and intentionally giving yourself that handicap, like putting one arm behind your back, you are setting yourself up for failure. And instead of getting to play Entomb, Reanimate, like being able to steal some games with Troll while occasionally doing some cute things, instead of being able to like be a Consigned to Memory Stifle deck or a like Torpor Orb style deck, we end up having to play these kind of suboptimal cards. And the more bad cards you play to enable a bad card, the worse your deck gets overall. So this was my best attempt at making it work despite the deck building restrictions. And between those restrictions and the bonus Volrath's Shapeshifter bug, that left us in a bad spot overall. So I hope this was a useful deck building lesson, and I hope it was still enjoyable. There were some interesting things going on here, but current Legacy is maybe the fastest that it has been in recent memory. And you don't get to do a lot of cute stuff right now. Like, the stuff that you are doing has to hang with the absolute fastest decks in the format. And our deck that is looking to play a 3-drop and then do something else to power up that 3-drop beyond that, like, that's asking a lot in the format of Entomb, Reanimate, or Grim Monolith, untap it, have 4+ mana very easily on turn 1. So with that, I think I'm going to call it a day. Folks, if you need some cards, you know where to go. Promo code ThrabenU to let TOA Magic know that I sent you, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya!